it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build good? Will it better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? When we pay it forward, it will be returned. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build good? Will it better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? When we pay it forward, it will be returned. When we pay it forward, it will be returned.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, friends from different parts of the world, Sweden, Malaysia, USA, India, my home country. There are so many. Sri Lanka, our co-host or co-organizer we have with us. So Reunion Island, all coordinators of Viri Group, welcome to this exclusive talk show.
Good to see you. And
I request my team to mute everyone, please. And the participants, please do not unmute yourself to maintain the decorum of the evening. Thank you very much in advance for your understanding. Let me introduce myself. I'm Rotarian Julia Gangwani from District 3011, India, convener of Viri Group, Women in Rotary International Group. We have one India group, over 250 members, and international group where we are soon reaching to 250. In international group, we have now 20 country coordinators who are taking active participation in today's meeting. What is this Viri group all about? Women in Rotary International Group. I will just take a quick the flashback mission and vision of our group. We are committed to empower women by enhancing their economic and social status. This is our mission. Vision: to create and support a dynamic Rotary culture where men and women work together to expand and build on existing strengths with the benefits of diversity to improve the life of individuals and communities in a way consistent with the Rotary International. What are our objectives? Our dream of our Rotary International President, Shekhar Mehta, to increase the number of women in Rotary. So we are gonna work on each one, bring one. Increase recognition and retention of women in Rotary, create paths for women leadership in Rotary, promote networking, projects, and business amongst women in Rotary, stimulate more international cooperations and projects, focusing on integrated development programs for children and women to promote sustainable projects in the 7 areas of focus, promote friendship, and in the last, vibrant fellowship. Viri is all about we, neither I nor me or myself. I would like to thank to each everyone in advance who are taking part in today's evening and part of this Viri group. And please encourage those women who are present today and not still part of our Viri group. I'm gonna, in the short while, I'm gonna put a form to be a part of our Viri group and share in your club, in your district, who are active Rotarian women. And this new Rotary year, they want to do something unique to in a friendship exchange, whether it's a peace, in any areas of focus. So we are all together to help our club. And in the end, we are going to help our district to achieve our governor's goal end of the year. Let's talk about today's meeting, World Peace. It's a pipe dream or a possibility? What a daring subject by a Rotarian women who are going to talk about this. For bringing world peace, which will be done by Rotarian Helen Peacock, peace advocate from Canada, And to have a world peace, first we need to have our inner peace. We will learn about inner peace from our Sri Lankan leaders, DG Aruni and DGE Pubudu. For Rotarians to get inner peace, it's not a difficult task because it comes to us while serving others, whether giving shelter to needy or educating a child or making any woman economical independent. These are few examples we have from our 7 areas of focus where we work and get inner peace. We Rotarians are non-political. Why can't we work as a bridge between conflict situations and resolve the issue? Concluding remarks only for this meeting will be given by none other than our USA Charter Coordinator, Rotarian Dr. Anne Frisch, and she is the chair of RAG Peace Group. I'm sure by end of this meeting, each one of you will come back to us in month of September, where we are gonna continue this peace talk on especially our Sri Lankans view in more details. Friends, I'm coming to end of my slot, so I request we need your active participation in this meeting from each one of you. During the meeting, we are gonna send some poll. So just answer that, and we send this poll in after each speaker. So do not leave us in the middle. I'm sure by end of this meeting, each one of you gonna take a pledge to take one peace fellowship program in your club or district this year, Rotary year. Let's begin. Over to you, Champa.
Thank you, Julia. Hello, everyone. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce Rotarian Helen Peacock. Rotarian Helen is having a BSc in Maths and Physics and a Master's in Computer Science. Peace Star Rotary Club of Collingwood, District 7010, Ontario, Canada. Rotarian Helen is the founder of Pivot to Peace. Rotarian Helen is a member of the Canadian Peace and Justice Network and a chapter coordinator for World Beyond War. Before I hand over to Rotarian Helen, my dear friends, can we have a quick poll on the world peace? Julia, over to you.
Friends, this you can see we have 20 seconds to go for this poll. Quickly answer, what do you believe in this? Hurry up, then we ask our Rotarian Helen to proceed for her presentation. Here we are, Helen, over to you. Helen, unmute yourself.
Helen, you're muted.
Okay, all good?
Yes.
So that was phenomenal. Most of us think it's a possibility that we can actually create a planet in which we do not use war as a means of resolving conflict, which is wonderful. I have another question that I like to ask, which is this. I call it the mystery question. Given that, sorry, my poll keeps coming up here. Given that survey after survey all around the world, country after country, culture after culture, says that people prefer peace, how come we still have war? How come? And before we delve into this a little more closely, I would like to just share a brief experience my husband and I had last year at the beginning of the pandemic, just the week before it became widely known that we were in the midst of an issue. We were in Panama City in Central America, and we were reading about the Panama invasion, which had happened in 1989. And I remembered it because I had watched the coverage of the invasion on television. And we were reading that it had been concentrated in an area called El Chorrillo, outside Panama City, because that was where the headquarters of the Panamanian army were. And we wanted to go to El Chorrillo, but the concierge in our hotel absolutely recommended that we not consider going, saying he could not guarantee our safety. So we talked to a friend we'd met on the street, and he said he would take us, provided we would slump down in the car and not draw attention to ourselves in any way. So we were still taking this with a grain of salt, but we slumped down in the car. He said it wasn't just our safety, it was his too, because we looked American, and he was concerned. And literally within 2 minutes of driving into El Chorrillo, we saw this very large, very fresh, very angry mural on the wall. And for those of you who don't speak Spanish, this means never forget, never forgive. And we're thinking, really, this happened 30 years ago, and this anger is so fresh. What were we missing here? And what we were missing was the fact that 4,000 civilians, most of them from El Chorrillo, had died in the Panama invasion. And what we were missing was the sheer trauma that had been inflicted on this community. There they were just 3 days before Christmas, asleep in their beds, and then this. Imagine the terror, imagine the fear, imagine the desperate need to protect their children. And people were found dead in their homes. People were found fused to cars because some kind of new laser weapon was being used. People were found with bullets in the back of their head. And everyone was evacuated from their homes, and systematically, block by block, using walkie-talkies, the homes were blown up and burned to the ground. And all Dave and I could think was, how come we didn't know this? How come? Now, the other story I want to share is that of my Rotary journey. And when I joined Rotary, I was already a peace activist. I was involved with World Beyond War, and I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life working for peace. And I attended the Rotary International Conference in Toronto in 2018, and I found it exhilarating. I was surrounded by thousands of people who shared my values to contribute and to make a difference. I loved the relationship between Rotary and the Institute of Economics and Peace. I was roaring to go. But in my first year in Rotary, I was having trouble finding just how I could contribute, and I started to have a lot of questions. Given that war is the greatest threat to peace, what was Rotary doing to help end war? And given that a lot of taxpayer dollars were going into the military, and that we know from the Institute of Economics and Peace that every dollar that goes into the military is $3 taken out of a positive peace economy, what was Rotary doing to help reverse that, to make people aware? And how was Rotary using its voice at the UN and on the world stage to advocate for these kind of big systemic changes that we were going to need to shift our planet to peace? And in Canada, I was wondering, are Rotarians aware of the situation on our planet today? There have been 250 wars since World War II, and we're now spending $2 trillion. And I put all those zeros in there on purpose. That's 12 zeros of taxpayer dollars on war. Just 3% of that would feed the entire planet. And so I wanted to work on educating others about war, as well as building positive peace. I wanted to make people aware so that we would shift those military dollars. I wanted to look at the big picture, because I knew that there was a huge military industrial war machine out there. And it was basically undoing all of our good deeds. And it felt to me that Rotary was asking me to ignore this. And in the end, I resigned. But I was only gone for a month, because then I had a visit from the district chair-elect of our district, who asked me to come back as district peace chair and gave me a mandate for me that I thought was from heaven, to not just talk about the positive peace initiatives within Rotary, but also to share what I knew about what it was going to take to end war and what was specifically happening in Canada. So I was back again, roaring to go. But that didn't last long. Within about a month, I was then received a stop and desist order and was told by the then district governor that I could talk about positive peace initiatives. In our district, what that meant was the peace centers and the peace scholars. So this wasn't enough for me, obviously, but I decided this time to stick around and look internationally at what Rotary was doing. Up until this point, I'd had a kind of a Canadian perspective. And I talked to district peace chairs all over the place, all of them operating in different and distinct ways. And I attended dozens of peace conferences, most of them put on by Rotary, and podcasts and speakers events put on by all kinds of different organizations. And I took every course being offered by Rotary Action Group for Peace and the Institute of Economics and Peace, and then several in-depth courses being offered by World Beyond War. I was busy. And on top of this, I found myself on the mailing list of a group of Rotarians who were working within Rotary. I'd say there were somewhere between 12 and 30 of them, working within Rotary to prevent nuclear war. Now, here I was, a peace activist, and nuclear war wasn't even on my radar screen. And all of these emails were going right over my head. So I set up a folder in my inbox, and I had them go directly in there, and then I read them on the weekends. And what I noticed after a while was I felt this shift happening inside of me, a real shift. And I became absolutely convinced that Rotary, it almost brings tears to my eyes, that Rotary could be instrumental in shifting our planet to peace. Absolutely convinced. And I'd like to share some of the experiences that were so pivotal for me in coming to this conclusion. I attended a peace conference put on by a Rotary club in India and a Rotary club in Pakistan. I didn't know anyone there. It was like a fly on the wall through the beauty of Zoom. And here they were, two nuclear powered countries with a disputed border between them. And they were meeting to talk about how they could diffuse the tensions and build peace. I just felt honored to be in that conference. I listened to a podcast put on by a Western group about the Russia problem, and I put that in quotes because I take anything said in the Western media about Russia with a grain of salt. And they were talking, and a question came from the audience, a Rotarian, and she said, has anybody considered actually talking to the Russian people? And I thought, yeah, what a concept. Instead of listening to these talking heads, why don't we actually talk to the Russian people? And I looked it up, and Rotary has 77 clubs in Russia. I was blown away. I thought that was just wonderful. Plus there's these inter-country committees between Rotary clubs in Russia and Rotary clubs in the US, Rotary clubs in Russia and Rotary clubs in Canada, and so on. And I just thought this was absolutely wonderful. There was a Peace Incubator conference that I went to, put on last fall. And one of the proposals to me was just a marriage made in heaven. The chair of the Rotary Action Group for Peace, Alison Sutherland, and the director of education for World Beyond War were partnering to put on a 6-week online peace building course for young people, followed by a 2-month implementation of a peace project. Now, the thing is, these young people were going to be 10 people from 10 different countries around the world. And they were going to learn not just about building positive peace, but also about ending war. And they were going to get mentorship in implementing a project in their own country. And I just thought how wonderful for them to have this opportunity to rub shoulders with the likes of young people in Cameroon and Uganda and Colombia and South Sudan and so on. I thought that was wonderful, which brings me to my emails. Turns out this was a group who was called Rotarians for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. And as I read these emails and they started to sink in, I became aware of all of the issues around nuclear that I had not considered, starting with what I call the culture of denial. And of course, I hadn't considered the culture of denial. I was part of the culture of denial. And so much so that let me just share a brief experience I had. Here I am on a Sunday afternoon reading these emails and looking out the door of my office to see my husband taking out 3 bins of my books, which I had agreed he could dispose. And I'm feeling anxious as these books are disappearing. And I go running out and I rescue this one book from the top of the last bin. Now, this was a book that meant a lot to me in the 80s because it was about how consciousness shifts. And I'm really interested in that. How do societies evolve? What has to happen for us to shift to new levels of awareness and consciousness? I just find that fascinating. And very briefly, this was the story of how a group of scientists observed the Japanese monkey in the wild on an island off of the base of Japan over 30 years. And at one point, they started dropping sweet potatoes on the sand. And the monkeys loved the sweet potatoes, but they did not like the grit from the sand. And then one day, one 16-month-old female monkey took her sweet potato to a stream, rinsed it off, ate it, and she loved it. And she showed it to her mother, and her mother loved it. And she showed it to her friends, and they showed it to their mothers, and they loved it. And over time, a small number of monkeys in the tribe adopted the habit. And then one day, one more monkey who had never done this before took his sweet potato to the stream, rinsed it, and he loved it. And to the amazement of the scientists who were observing this, it was as if the added energy of that one monkey was a tipping point, because within 24 hours, nearly everyone in the tribe adopted the habit of washing their sweet potato in the stream. Now, there's more to this story that I'll tell you in a moment. But first, what I want to share is the reason why I'm telling you this story now is that this was not a book about the hundreds monkey. This was a book about preventing nuclear war. And I, who had loved this book in the 80s, had no memory that it had anything whatsoever to do with preventing nuclear war. So I say that I wasn't just part of the culture of denial. I was a poster child for the culture of denial around nuclear war. Other issues I hadn't considered was this: even as we're speaking right now, you and I, there are thousands of people training so that they could continually, so that they could launch a nuclear weapon in minutes to destroy our planet. Think about the mindset behind that. Think about the consciousness behind that. And this whole idea of the first strike doctrine, whereby I reserve the right to drop a bomb on you if I think you may, drop a bomb on me, which is the policy in the United States right now. And we all know how flawed their intelligence can be. And it's not just the US. NATO has the same policy. Think of the anxiety and the fear that that's inducing all around the world, and the state of readiness and alertness that we're asking people to be in. And this was a new one to me because nuclear weapons haven't been used since the Second World War, right? So what is this? Nuclear deterrence works, right? Except if I take a gun and I hold you up, I don't shoot you, but I hold you up. Have I used the gun? Yes, I have. And that threat of use is there all the time. Don't think that that threat of use is not there. One of the presenters I met through these emails told us about 30 times that the US alone has used that threat. And that's just the US. The potential for area, this was another error. This was another presentation. He laid out a timeline between World War II and today and showed us there were 50 times that we came this close to a nuclear disaster, small or large. And he said, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, because when you have that many weapons out there and that many people handling them and that much technology behind them, there's that much opportunity for something to go wrong. And this one, think about it. We all draw a line in the sand for democracy, and yet we have allowed the most fundamentally undemocratic situation to evolve imaginable, where just a few people in a few countries can make a decision that maybe their own country doesn't even agree with and can impact the lives of billions. And then this one, I know I don't need to talk about this one. I don't need to belabor this point at all. US is modernizing their weapons. Britain is building their arsenal. Staggering waste of dollars. So here we are now, 13,000 nuclear warheads, 9 countries, no plan for recovery because there's no recovery possible. And what I say to you is that it is you and me, those of us who are outside the industrial, military, political complex, those of us who have a perspective on this, we are the ones who can see that as long as there are nuclear weapons, peace is not possible. We all voted, we all believed it would be possible, but as long as we have nuclear weapons, that threat is always there. And even negative peace is defined as the absence of violence and the threat of violence. But that threat is always there. So back to my question, how come? How did we get to this point where we all want to see peace, and yet we have created a situation that is so fundamentally not aligned with our wishes? Now, Einstein said, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. And I say that the level of consciousness on our planet that brought us to this point is based on old beliefs and fear. So let's just look at that for a second. Why is there still war? Well, what are we always told? Well, we're always told war is inevitable, right? Don't we hear that? It's part of human nature. It's always been there. It always will be there. Don't we hear that? And we're told sometimes war is necessary. You do have to draw a line in the sand for freedom and democracy. Don't we hear that? And of course, were there times when war can be justified? Only as a last resort, of course. But if you've used up all your carrots, you got to have your stick in reserve. So yeah, war can be justified. And finally, the industrial military complex is too powerful politically and economically. You don't stand a chance. But we're Rotarians. So we ask, is this the truth? Is it true? Is war really inevitable? And in fact, conflict may be inevitable, but war is a choice. China went 500 years without a war. The countries of Western Europe have gone the last 75 years without a war. And prior to that, they were fighting all the time. War is a choice. And as for war being necessary, we might have believed that at the end of World War II, but there has been so much research since then and so much deeper understanding of nonviolent defense. And we have the examples of Gandhi and Martin Luther King. And the research all shows that nonviolent defense is twice as likely to be successful, twice as likely to last, and without the death and destruction that comes from war. And as for war being justified, nonviolent alternatives are proving so unlimited that war can never be a last resort. And if someone tells you it was a last resort, ask them to show you the other 999 alternatives they looked at first. And finally, this one. When enough people are educated on the suffering of victims and the environmental destruction of war, most people haven't made the connection that war and the preparations for war are a #1 polluter of our environment. The US Department of Defense alone creates more toxic chemical waste than the 5 largest chemical companies combined. And we won't solve the problem of the environment unless we also solve the problem of war. So when enough people are educated and realize this, the political support will shift and the support for the industrial and the power of the industrial military complex will diminish. So if these aren't the reasons why we still have war, why do we still have war? And John Horgan and many others has done an exhaustive analysis using the scientific method to check every conceivable possible correlation between war and some other factor. And he found only one. Wars are made by cultures that celebrate or tolerate war. And we, you and I, are living in a culture wherever we are on the planet, to whatever the degree, that either celebrates or tolerates war. And he makes the point that you can tolerate something even while telling a pollster you oppose it, that real opposition takes work. So what do I mean by the fact that we're living in a culture that tolerates war? We don't think that way. And yet it is so ingrained in our culture and our history that we maybe aren't even conscious of it. The 250 wars since the end of World War II are like the tip of the iceberg. But the culture is so much broader and deeper, and it's in our heads and our books and our movies and our games and our education systems and our historical markers and our monuments and our ads. It's everywhere. Even when I look at Remembrance Day in Canada last year, 7 pages in our business newspaper on Remembrance Day, and the word peace was never mentioned once. It's there. So Einstein says we can't solve this problem from that level of consciousness. And the 100th monkey says that something miraculous can happen when just enough people adopt a new understanding. And what happened, to the amazement of our scientists, is that that habit of washing sweet potatoes jumped over the sea. And the monkeys on the mainland also started washing their fruit in nearby streams, as if just the one more person tuning into the new awareness allowed the consciousness shift and that awareness to be available to almost everyone. Now, if you think about this, we know intuitively that this is true. We can look to the Berlin Wall, which was up for years and which fell on a weekend. Consciousness shifted. And we can look to the women's movement. I was a member of a consciousness raising group in the 70s, and it was exhilarating. And we all know now that the world is a completely different place for our daughters than it was for our mothers. Consciousness shifted. And in fact, there's been a lot of research on this. Dr. Erica Chenoweth from Harvard University says that it takes only 4.5% of the population to have this new awareness, consciousness to shift for the entire population, just 4.5%. And I have come to believe that Rotarians all over the world, we collectively can bring that awareness to shifting our world to peace. So how can Rotarians most effectively do that? And of course, we have to start with ourselves. And if I could use myself as an example, how did I not know what had happened in Panama 30 years ago? And after we came back to Canada, Dave and I watched a documentary called The Panama Deception, which concluded that in fact, television had sold the Panama invasion. The anchors talked about our troops are having a good day, we are doing well, with no sense of perspective. And there was no mention of the dead civilians. And there was no questioning of the reason for the invasion, really to arrest a drug trafficker. And we all know that wasn't the real reason for the invasion. And my favorite example was one night on the NBC News. In one moment, the US occupiers were called doing peacekeeping chores. And you all saw the pictures. And the Latin American diplomats who condemned the invasion were called a lynch mob. Now, I don't think that our television anchors were consciously trying to sell us on the invasion. I think it was unconscious. They were given information that they took to be true and complete, and they passed it on to me, and I unconsciously took it to be true and complete. And I believe that what this is all about is asking us to wake up and ask the questions and be aware and go deeper ourselves into what is going on around us. I also don't mean to pick on the states. This just happens to be an example that applies to them. And then we look at the big picture and come back to my 3 questions. What is Rotary doing to help end war? What is Rotary doing to help shift the military dollars to positive peace building? How can Rotary use its voice at the UN? Now, again, we are in the midst of a pandemic. We're coming out of it, but we turn to science to know how to come out of the pandemic. And I think we should consult the scientists again on this question. And I watched the unveiling of the doomsday clock this year. And as you know, they left it at 100 seconds to midnight, the closest it's ever been. And they had 3 major reasons for this. And their number 1 reason was the accelerating nuclear weapons program. That was their number 1 reason. So if we're going to listen to the scientists and we're going to pay attention to what they're telling us, we all need to get familiar with the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which entered into force in January of this year. Now, up until this time, other weapons like chemical weapons and biological weapons had comprehensive treaties banning them, but not nuclear. But now with this treaty, for the countries that have signed the treaty, nuclear weapons are also illegal. And the treaty itself helps stigmatize these weapons in the same way that chemical and biological weapons have been stigmatized, and serves as a catalyst for their eventual elimination. Now, here is where we are on this right now. 86 states have signed the treaty. 54 states have ratified it. And 69 nations, among them all the nuclear weapon states and all nuclear countries, did not vote or participate. So given that war is the greatest threat, and looking at what Rotary could be doing to make the biggest impact, dare I have the temerity to suggest that Rotary could be advocating for the worldwide support of the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Now, I can just imagine what you are thinking, and it's got to be a variation of but, what is wrong with her? What is wrong with her? Does she have bricks for brains or something? Doesn't she know? Surely she knows. Everybody knows. Every Rotarian knows. Rotary can't get involved politically. What is wrong with her? And my answer to that is, I don't think so. I don't think so. Because I read Rotary magazine in February this year about Rotary's success in eradicating polio in Africa. I read the article 3 times. And these were the challenges that Rotary faced. And these were the way Rotary handled, these were the strategies that Rotary used to handle these challenges. Conflict. Rotary and its partners negotiated truces and military protection. Negotiated truces. That sounds political to me. How did they deal with rumors becoming a political thing rather than a means to save lives? Rotary advocated with government leaders and educated the public, advocated to government leaders. I'd like to know how you advocate to government leaders without being political. That sounds political to me. What about the hard to reach children? Rotary coordinated campaigns with surrounding nations because borders are porous, and that's what they had to do to eradicate polio. They coordinated campaigns with surrounding nations. How do you do that without being political? And finally, my favorite, it will come as no surprise to you to know that many of these countries in Africa, the leaders did not have polio vaccinations on their radar screen at all. It was not a priority in the governments of many of these countries. So what did Rotary do? They used their respected roles in society to advocate to their own governments to become active in polio eradication. If that is not the very definition of political, then I don't know what is. So I think we better properly describe our thinking here. It's not that Rotary can't get involved politically. It's that Rotary can't be partisan. Of course, we can't be advocating for this government over that government or this party over that party. But as far as being political is concerned, it's an indisputable fact that Rotarians can be brilliantly and effectively political. Brilliantly and effectively political. And we could just as easily take out eradicating polio in Africa and substitute advocating for world support of the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And we would face exactly the same challenges, and we could use exactly the same strategies to overcome these challenges. We know how to do it. We've already done it. We did it once brilliantly. We know how to do it. We could do it again. So a first step, apply the four-way test. Always apply the four-way test. Would worldwide support of the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons make us safer? And of course, the answer is yes, 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 and yes. A second step, we could ask Rotary International to endorse the treaty. Now, we did ask Rotary International to endorse the treaty last year, and our request was denied. There's a council on resolutions that meets every year to look at these resolutions, for those of you who aren't aware. And there's a representative on the council from every district. And so the council met, and last year did not support the resolution. This year, the resolution is going forward again, proposed by a club in a district in Australia and 2 districts in Canada. And this year, we're hoping to get more support for the resolution. We have talked to clubs in all of these districts in North America. They have asked for a copy of the resolution. They're discussing it within their clubs and within their districts. In a talk we gave to Australia, 4 more districts asked for copies of the resolution and are talking about it within their clubs and their districts. In a talk given to St. Petersburg Club in Russia, there were Rotarians from 7 different countries, and they asked us to send them copies of the resolution so that they could discuss it with their club and their district. And finally, in a presentation that was sponsored by one of Rotary's 24 representatives to the UN, there were clubs from all of these countries who asked for copies of the resolution so they could discuss it within their club and within their district. So there's quite a bit going on at the grassroots level in support of this resolution. As well, we may have support that we think within Rotary. I've heard Shekhar Mehta speak many, many times in many of those peace conferences that I've gone to. He's already signed the Japanese Survivors Appeal, and he said things like, we shouldn't be arming ourselves with weapons that we won't use. He's also really feels like a person who thinks big and wants us to achieve the audacious. So given that he's a supporter of the TPNW, we may have more support than we think within Rotary. I don't know where this came from. I think Anne, you posted this. We also have the support of the general public. Remember, I said that those of us outside the industrial, military, and political complex, we're the ones who can clearly see that nuclear weapons must be eliminated for us to be safe. And so it'll come as no surprise to you that in recent polls, since the treaty was ratified, in countries all over the world, 70 to 80% of citizens support the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And many of the other 20% were undecided or part of the industrial, military, and political complex. This is quite the experience for me. So it brings me back to my original question. I've gone, I'm not sure. Excuse me, forgive me. Do you think that Rotary, can you see me, everybody? Nod your heads.
Yes, we can see.
Yes. Do you think that Rotary could indeed, that we could ask Rotary International to endorse the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and that Rotary could indeed be a tipping point that could help shift our planet to peace? And we sincerely want to ask you that question. So if you just give me a moment to stop screen sharing, I'm going to post a link in the chat to a brief survey that's going to take you less than 1 minute to answer. Can you see it there, everybody, in the chat? So if you just click on the link, we have a few questions that we'd like to ask you about this, and then come on back. Thank you.
Thank you, Rotarian Helen, for your insightful presentation on world peace, a pipe dream or possibility. Now, it is my honor to introduce our district governor, Rotarian Aruni Malalasekara. Rotarian Aruni Malalasekara is the district governor for the years 2021-2022 for Rotary International District 3220, Sri Lanka and Maldives. District Governor Rotarian Aruni is a member of Rotary Club of Cinnamon Gardens, Rotary International District 3220. District Governor Aruni is a chartered architect and an entrepreneur. Over to you, Governor.
Thank you very much, Shampa. Good evening to all of you. Thank you, Helen, for that very insightful presentation. I bring greetings from Sri Lanka and Maldives. For most of you that have not visited Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka is known as the pearl in the Indian Ocean, since Sri Lanka is geographically located at the tip of the lower end of India on the Indian Ocean. Many are misled by thinking that Sri Lanka is part of India. Of course, over the years, Sri Lanka and India has had close relationship, and we still hold strong ties. However, we are an independent country. We are an island rich with natural resources and famous for our prestigious gemstones and the gem industry, which most of you all would have heard of. We were a colony under the British rule up until 1948, after which we gained independence from foreign invasion in the country. I go back in history to an era when we first gained independence, where our nation included all communities to be equal. The Sinhalese, the Tamils, the Muslims, and the mixed races, we accepted as citizens of Sri Lanka, and we do even up to now. We as a country had unity and peace between ethnic and religious groups during independence. All three languages, Sinhala, English, and Tamil, are still spoken in our country, and we have accepted as national languages in our country. It was a time when each community fought for one another. It was my great-grandfather, Dr. T.B. Jaya, who was a philanthropist and also a Muslim leader in our country, that fought for the Sinhala Buddhist nationals to be given a day of holiday on the full moon 4 days for Buddhist religious observances to be carried out. It was after relentless appeals by Dr. T.B. Jaya made to the Salisbury Commission under the British rule at the time that actually allowed the Buddhist nationals in our country once a month to come, where a complete day of holiday was given to observe religious practices. Over the years, Sri Lanka has turbulent times. The worst era experimented by the country was a 30-year civil war where the country was attacked with grenades and bombs, killing hundreds and thousands of inhabitants in the country. It was an extremist rebel group formed by the LTT Tigers seeking Elam by division of the country, which erupted as a cataclysmic to our nation. After a 30-year battle against the rebel group, the LTT Tiger movement, we finally was freed from a dark era in year 2009. During this time of the war, from 2004 to 2009, myself being a chartered architect, I was very much involved in rebuilding the country with a number of foreign missions after the tsunami that swept away our country and our communities in the year 2004. The tsunami killed almost 40,000 people overnight, soon after we had celebrated Christmas on the 26th of December. Rotary District 3220 was involved in rebuilding the schools under the Tsunami Schools Reawakening Program. And I was a young architect at the time, and I contributed my services voluntarily towards the very first Rotary Tsunami School in Ambalangoda, a school which was captured by the Apex Committee as a model school to promote the program and collect funds from international donors to build 22 other Rotary schools. Having seen the humanitarian work done by Rotary and the work that I was involved in, the Polish humanitarian organization invited me to rebuild 6 more tsunami and war-affected schools in the Batiklu region, that is the eastern region of Sri Lanka. This was a time when the military operations were being carried out against the LTT rebel group, and was certainly not the safest region to work in. However, being convicted in my heart that one way of seeking peace is sowing the seed of love and togetherness, I took up the challenge to take on the assignment to build better schools for the children of the rebel group that was in that area. On my visit to the construction site in Tirikkovil, the eastern region of Sri Lanka, with my 2 assistants, along with the Polish mission that participated, we traveled together in a van with a white flag symbolizing peace. There were a few youngsters with guns that hovered around us while we traveled right up to Tirikkovil. At first, I was horrified. But as we went along and approached the school, I realized that they were really protecting us and welcoming us into this area. I was amazed when I visited the site. The construction labor employed at the site were all rebel group members. However, I did my task by inspecting the school and looking at how best I could give one of the best schools in this area. Having finished my work, I walked up to the principal of the school and I wished him and his school well. I said to him, I have come a long way from Karamur to Tirikkovil to ensure a better school for the children in this region. And I look forward to witness someday that this school produces the best students in this region. I'm glad I was able to share at least a few kind words and a gesture of peace and love in this visit. And I know that I would have touched at least one heart or maybe a few of the rebel group members in that region, my gesture and my visit to the school. After 10 years of bliss in Sri Lanka, away from a horrific 30-year era in 2019, on the 21st of April, on Easter Sunday, once again our nation was hit by a group of Muslim religious extremists. A number of Catholic churches and tourist hotels were unmercifully attacked by bombs and grenades, killing hundreds of civilians and foreign nationals that were visiting Sri Lanka who were tourists. This was a time that I witnessed. The country came together, all the religious leaders in the country uniting together to hold peace and harmony among our civilians. Having learned the hardship that we citizens of Sri Lanka experienced over the past 30 years, a dark era of a civil war, I was glad to see unity and harmony this time around, and I did not see a repercussion of a reaction to this situation. And I'm glad that the country was held back and continued with peace. My personal view as a leader and a Rotary governor to our nation is that peace has to begin with each of us, which we can carry to our communities and then to our political leaders and bureaucrats, and then across the continent. First of all, in Rotary, we need to instill and nurture positive peace to create social cohesion among our members, to integrate by encouraging diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this year, in my district, I have initiated the program called Connect by Heart. It is in the focus area of peace and conflict prevention, where members of varied ethnic and religious groups share their ethnic and religious values with one another by celebrating religious festivities and programs that enlighten their ethnic and religious values to one another. The Rotary Peace Fellowship Program also is a great program where we Rotarians can encourage members from our communities as candidates, because this program fully funds 130 scholarships each year, which encourages members from our communities to apply as candidates, and we Rotarians can endorse these applications and develop these community leaders to be able to handle peace and conflict prevention in times of need. We Rotarians must inspire one another while we inspire others in our communities. We women in Rotary should not have barriers in contributing with our talents and capabilities, as we must do our part to contributing towards peace at every given opportunity. Our next presenter, DG, District Governor-elect Puvudu, will enlighten all of you on various ways and Rotary focus areas in how we can play a vital part as women in Rotary. As I conclude, I wish all of you a great year ahead, and let us join hands to serve to change lives. Let us serve to transform lives in bringing peace among our communities and also across our continent. I wish you all a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, District Governor Rotarian Aruni, for sharing your experience as a Rotarian who got involved in building peace among our communities. It inspired us to work together as Rotarians on this worthy cause. My dear friends, there's another question. Over to you, Rotarian Julia.
Thank you, Rotarian Champa. What a wonderful talk experience we had just now. Here, questions goes for you, dear friends. Just you have 20 seconds. Are you aware of the Rotary Positive Peace Program? 5 seconds more. Hurry up. We would like to see how many of you know. 3 seconds more. Here we go. And here we end. Shall I, DG Aruni, with your permission, shall I show the results? Here are 68% Rotarians know about Rotary Positive Peace Program. Those 32% who do not know, I request, please go to rotary.org and learn about this program. Or DG Aruni is there, and Helen, Rotarian Helen is there, and any of us, you can contact us. So I'll take you to another question quick.
Now
Now
it is
how many fellowships the Rotary Foundation awards in a year? Friends, please post 130 or 150. Just 8 seconds more. Yes, we are getting the right answers. Yes. 50, oh, 50-50. Uh-oh. Still we are, oh no. Friends. And here are the results. 49% says 130, 150 says 54. Right answer is 130. Thank you very much. Over to you, Rotarian Champa.
our next speaker. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce Rotarian Pubudu Soiza, is the district governor for the years 2022-2023 for the Rotary International District 3220, Sri Lanka and Maldives. District Governor-elect Pubudu is a member of the Rotary Club of Colombo, which is the first and the largest Rotary Club in our district. Professionally, District Governor-elect Rotarian Pubudu is a chartered civil engineer and currently working as project director at the Ministry of Health in Sri Lanka. Over to you, DG Pubudu.
Thank you very much, Past President Champa, our coordinator for Sri Lanka for Women in Rotary International. Thank you once again, District Governor Aruni, our leader, for setting up the flow, to share our experience of Sri Lanka about this peace process. Good morning, good evening, friends of Rotary and friends in Rotary. There's a reason for each conflict, which has been there throughout generations, which cannot be sorted out on one-to-one negotiations. Friends, unless we address the root causes, we may not be able to see into this. As you know, Rotarians have been always the catalysts and had played a vital role in uprooting these causes of conflicts. I sincerely believe we Rotarians need to have a closer look on this end to end these issues across the globe. And you know that there are so many root causes, whether it is hunger or illiteracy or poverty, ill health, or even in the reason like COVID, environment destructions. Let me take you through a journey, a story of Sri Lankan Rotarians, how we addressed these causes of destructions, the conflict through peace building, involving Rotary's 7 focus areas. May I see the slides, Julia? I'm sure you all are aware 7 areas of focus. Very first, areas of focus is the maternal and child health. May I see the slide, please? First slide. Next one, please. I would like to take your eyes onto my screen. Imagine the peace, the happiness we could create in families by improving health of mothers and their children by various ways. Look at the top part of my presentation, the pictures. Like current pandemic, the world was affected by dreaded polio in years ago. Friends, but I'm so happy that today, just 98% more than 98% children in this world are polio free. We are just this close. We are just 2 countries to make our dream a success. With regard to the Sri Lanka's polio free story, very interesting. Rotarians of Sri Lanka negotiated with rebel leaders such as LTT in early 90s and helped Sri Lanka to achieve the Asia's very first country in eradicating polio through the negotiations facilitated by Rotarians with the LTTE and also our government, Ministry of Health and other partners. So we are so proud, friends. We built peace and achieved happiness of each mother, giving the polio drop to every child in our country in late 1990s. Look at the below, the pictures down there. You could see past Rotary International president is carrying a little girl child, a mom who is carrying his little cute son. Where the busy Rotarians, not just from Sri Lanka, even from Germany, came down to Sri Lanka. After the post-tsunami, we established a maternity hospital in the far end of South called Gaul, Mahamodara. We set up the maternity hospital, enabling the mothers to deliver their children safely. Next slide, please. Even we established our first ever human heart valve bank project. That previous slide, please. Sorry. As you know, we found more than 3,000 children born with severe heart diseases and die every year. Sometimes they do not see their first birthday, friends. Think of the trauma going through those mothers and the immediate family members, the loved ones. We Rotarians in Sri Lanka continue to funding cost of heart surgeries, giving hope to these young children. You could see on my slides, the right-hand side, see the lovely smiles on these children's faces. This is what the peace we achieved in Sri Lanka. Next slide. Disease prevention and treatment is the next areas of focus in Rotary, which is very familiar to you and me. Our efforts towards healthy, peaceful communities, preventing diseases and promoting health is in many folds, friends. I wish to share with you the pictures on the top of my presentation, the first part of my presentation. See the cancer, this deadly disease. Rotary has embarked this ambitious project to eradicate cervical cancer from Sri Lanka and becoming the first Asian country by 2030. As all of us know, and we understand, the mental trauma and the disruption in any family if we had to face this deadly disease. We, the Rotarians, set up the Cancer Screening and Prevention Center 20 years ago, helping many people to live safe and smile and back to their livelihoods. Eye clinics across the country, thousands and thousands of cataract operations to elderly and helping them to see the world, see their grandchild smile, see their son or the daughter's birthday celebrations. You could see this people, the smiles that the happiness that they come getting through is real peace, friends, that we could achieve. In bottom part of my presentation, you could see Making difference to the children, we provided many equipment, even to the children who are suffering many deadly diseases, such as thalassemia, the cancer, and many other. Not only that, Rotarians provided the hearing aids to the children who has the hearing impairments, where actually our partners were from many other countries, such as Germany, USA, and London. Next slide, please. Friends, the third focus areas of our Rotary is water and giving, the hygiene and the sanitation. See the smiles once again on these little kids, the school children on the center of my presentation. You look at their eyes. Think of Rotarians helping these societies, providing equitable access to the safe drinking water, the children who are living in north and north central provinces of our country, and also setting up many reverse osmosis plants, providing very safe drinking water and also hygiene system to the primary schools and also to the communities, helping them to build peace and happiness while they live their full life. Next slide. Next slide, please. Fourth focus area of Rotary is basic education and literacy. Once again, Rotarians involved in setting up mobile libraries for estate laborers' children in central province called Nuwara in Sri Lanka. You could see the mobile bus. Next to that, you could see our local Rotarians together with our partners in many other countries, USA, Germany, Australia, joining hands with giving this happiness to our children. See on the right side of my presentation on the top part, our friends from USA talking to the children. See the happiness. See, they're speaking in English. Communication is the main tool for building peace. We also set up the playground equipment for the schools, rural schools. You could see in the last part of the down part of my presentation below. These playground equipment, friends, were sourced or given to us from our friends in Australia, Melbourne. Thanks to all of them. See the happiness, the smiles of these children, and also how we build peace through healthy societies. We also set up fully equipped 24 schools with much help and assistance from Rotary Foundation, as our district governor mentioned. Tsunami hit our country very badly, and Rotary decided one and only the project that we wanted to help our children education and help in their education. And we set up 24 fully equipped schools across the country. And this was our major project, and we are very happy that we were able to help our government to get this immense important project. Next slide, please. The fifth focus areas of our Rotary service is building economies and communities. As District Governor Aruni mentioned, the country suffered the 30 years of civil war. Later, many other wars, though it was not civil war, but it's different forms. So the Rotarians of this country, partnering with many other corporate and Rotary partners across the world, help to set up and renovate many irrigation tanks in northern province, provided drip irrigation system, set up entrepreneur center, very specially for the women and the widows who were affected by this deadly war, helping them to strengthen livelihoods, build peaceful societies. See, friends, down on my presentation, the growth, the vegetables that they have grown, and also their lovely scarves they have stitched at our vocational entrepreneurial centers set up in Vavuniya, that is northern part of Sri Lanka. And the most top part is actually the lands that in our northern part. We helped them to set up these irrigation tanks because we wanted them to be back in their economic lives. On my presentation, the left down corner, you could see the elderly people, or whether it's elderly or young, we help them to walk again. Peace of mind because they were mobile. We have set up, the Rotarians have set up the Center for Handicap in Central Province in Kandy, which run today as a very independent organization, but Rotarians continuously helping them to ensure all of them could walk again. As the result of this initiation, more than thousands of people be able to stand their own, work independently, and given their testimony that their lives back. And thanks to Rotary and the Rotarians once again across the world. Next slide, please. 6 avenues of focus areas of Rotary is economic and community development, life part of our country, any country of the world. Rotarian help to establish peaceful and beautiful places, very specially in these areas. No, previous slide, please. You could see the more than 300 companies were certified COVID-free environment, whether it was the consumer business, whether it's a supermarket, whether it's a tea business or any other, whether it's a manufacturing organization. You know that we all want to go back safely to our work and come back home safely. So to do that, we have the Stop the Spread initiative set up by our Rotarians, help the companies, the organization to achieve this certification through the government organization called Sri Lanka Standard Institution, and managed to help people to come back to work and help our economies. Down picture, the next picture shows you our support to the COVID vaccination program, helping not only the communities, but also the health staff and the health communities, the supporting logistics, and also the data entry operations at the COVID vaccination centers. Next one, please. 6th Avenue of service. I took this as 6th Avenue, though it is 7th focus areas. I took it as 6th because I wanted to put the last one, the most important, supporting the environment. We had many programs, planting trees across the country. Though our country is really green, we really don't want many trees, but you know that it depletes the environment is really important for our children and generations to live, enjoying greener and more fresh air breathing. We have partnered with many private organizations and also with many other countries in setting up this 1 million tree program, started in 2014 and currently ongoing, planting trees across the island together with many Rotarians. Finally, friends, peace. Next slide, please. We are talking about peace, friends. Peace and conflict prevention or resolution is our final and the most important focus areas in Rotary. Rotarians in Sri Lanka and worldwide supported peace building in communities to prevent and mediate conflict at any stage of their lives, very especially during the post-war era. Not only that, even during and current COVID-19 pandemic. You could see the youth exchange programs. My slides, the top part, is actually the children who came from north and east to Colombo and to the south. You see, these children have never seen those places, never even shared their cultural and values with others. The same we reciprocated. The children living in Colombo and the cities and the southern part went back to the northern part, lived, shared their cultural values more than a week, living together in with their families. The below of my slides is another experience we gained thanks to the current pandemic. Friends, the opportunities are all over. You could see the down as I have shared. Youth exchanges, vocational exchanges, and the family exchanges held in our country together with countries such as USA, Australia, Germany, Pakistan, India, Bangkok, Singapore. In exchanging our children, youth exchanges held virtually, but equal experience we gain, same as the physical. Even the family exchanges held it before the COVID pandemic, helped our country to achieve the peace that we really wanted to. To end my presentation, I wish to say, I invite all of you, my dear friends in Rotary, please join me with 1.2 million like-minded people of all of us, building peace and combat conflict through Rotary's 7 focus areas: changing lives, building peace, serving humanity, changing lives. Thank you, friends. Take care, stay safe.
Thank you, District Governor-elect Rotarian Pukudu, for sharing what is being done by Rotary District 3220, Sri Lanka and Maldives to build peace in our country by following 7 focus areas of Rotary. Our next speaker is Rotarian Dr. Anne.
Rotarian Champa, I would like to interfere to give one interesting poll for DG Prabhu. Here we go.
Yes.
Friends, what do you say? Can you build up peace through Rotary International 7 areas of focus? Here we go. Come on, we have 12 seconds. 6 seconds, 5. That's good voting we're getting. With permission of DG Prabhudu, here I'm sharing the results. 98%
Yes.
says yes, we can. Thank you very much, friends.
Thank you very much, friends. I'm sure you will understand with the time we will achieve this peace.
Thank you again, DG Pukudu. Now I would like to invite Rotarian Dr. Anne. Dr. Anne French, Rotarian. Anne is a graduate of the University of Michigan, got a BA on French and Masters of Social Work and PhD in Human Ecology from Michigan State University. Rotarian Anne is from E Club of International Peace, District 5960. Currently, she chairs a committee of Rotarians working to prevent nuclear war. Chair Planet Free of Nuclear Weapons Group. My dear friends, I would like to, before I invite Rotarian Dr. Anne, my dear friends, I would like to inform you, you can post your questions in the chat box from 2 minutes from now. Over to you, Rotarian Dr. Anne.
Well, thank you. Such interesting presentations, Rotarian Helen, DG Aruni, and DGE Pubudu. So my job is to try to pull this together and to see what the themes are and how we might go forward. There are two themes that I see here, both challenging and very forward-thinking. Challenging our thinking and our practices, and particularly, but not exclusively, how we respond to war and violence. We celebrate what we're doing right, peace through service, and serving to change lives. And we need to recognize some practices that we have employed and need to move forward again. First, referencing political, as Helen describes it, to me meaning controversial. She prefers to use the term partisan, and of course we are nonpartisan. We don't take sides, that's in our charter. We acknowledge that some things are controversial. Helen has shown how Rotary can rise to the challenge of controversial when we are nonpartisan and nonviolent as required by our charter. We can embrace controversy. From the earliest days of Rotary, Rotarians were able to persist in the face of controversy. Here are some examples. Only 3 years into Rotary, in 1907, there were no public restrooms in Chicago, where Rotary was conceived. Despite opposition from store owners, Rotary forged ahead and built comfort stations. It was controversial. Department stores had restrooms to lure customers in, so they did not want public restrooms. That took courage and conviction and nonpartisanship. Today, Rotarians are building restrooms in schools so that children will get an education safely. Restrooms in schools makes girls' education possible. Girls' education is still sometimes controversial, but we persist. A second example, in the face of war and opposition and governmental efforts to disband Rotary clubs, Rotary became singing clubs and day of the week clubs to continue in the spirit of Rotary friendship in the face of adversity. Imagine the courage it took to do that. And in Germany, Rotary clubs were ordered to expel their Jewish members, and they finally did, always resisting. Rotary there later disbanded. Rotary was challenged by a US court to open membership to women, and Rotary did. Rotary clubs were ready with women members. And Rotary has embraced the challenge of a changing climate with a new area of focus supporting the environment. And by embracing the challenge of racism, promoting respect, celebrating diversity, demanding ethical leadership, and working tirelessly to advance peace are our central tenets for our work. Both were subjects of great controversy, and in some areas, they continue to be. We are nonpartisan. And the second theme is continuing our work in recovery after a war. But Rotary and Rotarians have also been working during war. And we have seen here the very important work of moving toward positive peace following a long and terrible war on Sri Lanka, as DG Aruni and DGE Pubudu have demonstrated. We acknowledge how Rotarians have worked in war, and after all, Rotarians are themselves caught up in war and do the best they can to persist. The Rotary framework is traditionally working on positive peace, meaning not in areas afflicted with violence and war. And there were good reasons for this. The safety of Rotarians, protection of equipment, and the difficulty of providing services that are clearly nonpartisan and are perceived to be nonpartisan. But Rotary had to work in war to continue its program in vaccinating for polio. To its credit, Rotary has achieved great success working in these countries, even when and where vaccinators have been killed. To achieve polio-free, Rotary had to work with governments in the countries affected by war. And vaccinations are still controversial in some places, in the very places that Rotary must work in areas of war. We persist because we are humanitarian and nonpartisan. In Helen's terms, we were political in making the world polio-free, but a nonpartisan cause. We need to employ the practices that allow Rotary to be nonpartisan and nonviolent in areas of violence and support the Rotarians who are part of it. Just a few quick examples. The Rotary Club of Bombay patrolled the streets during the violence between Hindus and Muslims in 1947. Rotarians in the United States sent letters to give German and Austrian Rotary clubs support. Hundreds of letters were exchanged, and not by email or WhatsApp. The story is being told in Rotary conferences. We now have the document translated into English. When a misunderstanding between Peru and Colombia arose in 1947, two Rotarians, one from each country, intervened, stepped in. No blood was shed. And in a historic meeting resolution at the Rotary International meeting in Havana in 1940, called for freedom, justice, truth, sanctity of the pledge word, and for human rights, paving for the work of involvement of Rotary in the founding of UNESCO, the UN Charter, and the International Declaration of Human Rights. But in April of this year, significantly, the Rotary Foundation just created a new policy on the investment of Rotary funds. They must be socially responsible. When implemented, Rotary funds will be used for socially responsible investments to promote climate solutions, to be more equitable and inclusive, and to move away from nuclear weapons. Indeed, this policy has just confirmed that nuclear weapons are nonpartisan and not political. Helen, the consciousness has shifted. So we encourage you to support the Treaty of the Prohibition on Nuclear Weapons. Take the leadership the government of Sri Lanka has done. That information is in the chat. And we encourage you to sign the Japanese Survivors Appeal. You can click on the link in the chat and sign it when you leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Rotarian Anne, for your sharing your experience and your knowledge with us. Rotarian Julia, there are some more questions to pass, I suppose.
Yeah, I'll just take this opportunity for a last question. Although, friends, you have one question answers in the chat box, I request please go through that. I'll put Helen on the spotlight also. Helen, floor is yours. Please request friends to do that.
I've just had a number of requests from people to actually see the quick survey that we asked you to fill out at the end of my presentation. So I've posted it again in the chat there. So if you could just take a moment to click on that, and it literally will only take you a minute to answer the questions. That would be very much appreciated. Thank you, everyone. Can you see it in the chat?
Yeah,
I'm reposting it, Rotarian Helen.
Okay.
Friends, as I mentioned, do not leave us in the middle. We are about to wrap up our meeting another 5 or 6 minutes from now. So stay with us. I'm sure. Helen is going on. Are you getting
Pardon me?
it?
I'm sorry, what, Julia?
It's going on. Are
Are
you
people
getting the
asking
survey done?
I think so. I don't see it online. I have to go and look for it afterwards.
Perfect. So 1 minute is over, friends. So we come for the last poll of this evening.
Yes, every good thing has to comes to an end. Now I would like to invite our co-country coordinator, Rotarian Mudara Veerasinghe, to deliver the vote of thanks. Rotarian Mudara is from Rotary Club of Negombo, District 3220, Sri Lanka, Maldives. She
Friends,
is,
it's going on. Rotarian
okay, sorry.
Chamber is going. It's women's participation in conflict resolution. Oh my goodness, I'm going to share the result with the permission of Rotarian Anne and Rotarian Helen. It's not good. You both have to work very hard. DG Aruni, DG Prabodhi. And as a very group, we have to work hard to reverse this. 79% say no. We have to. It's a big challenge.
Sure, definitely.
Thank you very much, friends. Over to you, Rotarian Champa.
Yeah, so every good thing has to come to an end. Now I would like to invite our co-country coordinator, Rotarian Mudara Veerasinghe, to deliver the vote of thanks. Rotarian Mudara is from Rotary Club of Negombo, District 3220, Sri Lanka, Maldives. She is the founder and director at Party House Holdings Private Limited, Sri Lanka. She has a BA honors in interior designing, and she is currently following MA in fashion business management at University of Westminster, UK. Over to you, Rotarian Mudara.
Thank you, Champa. Hello to all my dear Rotarians, friends, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks at the Women in Rotary International Forum on World Peace. I, on behalf of the Women in Rotary International, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to peace advocate Rotarian Helen Peacock for participating in this Women in Rotary International World Peace Forum and for a presentation on the topic World Peace, Pipe Dream or Possibility. Thank you so much, Dr. Helen, Rotarian Helen, for expressing your views on how Rotary could be playing a bigger role on the world stage to help prevent war, as well as build positive peace. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation towards Rotarian Aruni Malalasekara, District Governor for 2021-2022 of RI District 3220, Sri Lanka and Maldives, for educating all of us on peace in Sri Lanka, how Rotary Peace Fellowship Program contributed our communities, your signature Connect by Heart program to focus on peace and conflict prevention, and also for sharing your views on how women in Rotary must play their part in peace building in our communities. I must mention our gratitude towards Rotarian Pubudu de Soisa, District Governor-elect for 2022-2023 of RI District 3220, Sri Lanka and Maldives. Thank you so much, DG Pubudu, for sharing your views on how Sri Lankan Rotarians are committed to peace through service, focusing on our goal of a more peaceful world. A big thank you goes to Rotarian Dr. Anne Frisch, Chair of RAGFP Nuclear Weapons Subcommittee, for initiating this peace forum at the very first place, and also for sharing your views on peace and conflict prevention. Another big thank you goes to Rotarian Julia Gangwani of Women in Rotary International and Rotarian Champa Pereira, the coordinator for Sri Lanka, for overall coordination of this Women in Rotary International World Peace Forum. And I want to thank all of the Women in Rotary International country coordinators for your support and encouragement extended. Last but not the least, I want to thank all the fellow Rotarians and friends for being here today virtually to participate in Women in Rotary International World Peace Forum. Thank you.
Friends, let me say thank you to especially our VD coordinators who really worked very hard since very first day we come to, they curated this meeting, Rotarian and Fresh from USA coordinator, Rotarian Champa, Sri Lanka coordinator, Rotarian Mudara, co-coordinator from Sri Lanka. Really, they really worked very hard, and it won't be justice if I won't say under the supervision of DG Aruni and DG Pubudi and our Helen Peacock, who really mesmerized everyone with her presentation. Thank you very much. And now, before we finally say end, I'm gonna do a couple of announcements. Allow me to, if I can share the screen. As I mentioned in the beginning, that definitely this meeting is gonna leave a deep impact, that you're gonna join us on the peace subject with Sri Lanka and month of September, and we're gonna announce that meeting in our August meeting. And when is our August meeting? August meeting is on 21st of August. Will be curated by our USA co-coordinator, DG Alka from Rotary International District 6000. I think so she has left because she's a current leader, but I'm really grateful to our district governors, district governor-elects who are giving importance and they understand the sense of a very group. Thank you very much. Let me share just block the date, please. And I will allow me to share the presentation. Friends, here we are. Very international groups and open heart conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So block your date in advance. See you in month of August to talk about this. There is another surprise which we will reveal with the passage of time. Thank you very much once again for joining us. Gracias, namaskar.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.